Is there a question on related to this? Sure, come on up.
Right. So the question is, after building up some yeses in a way, like using the notice and attention things.
Right.
I took a chance, took a risk, and just asked the person to sort of doing the stuck feet induction.
Okay.
Right. And it kind of worked at least from like my perception. It worked because when I asked the person to move his feet, he didn't move the feet. But after maybe 5 seconds, he said, "Should I?"
Right.
So what do you do in this case?
What's the purpose? I mean, if you're talking about street hypnosis, there's a lot of things which we're not really talking about here. If you want, I'll happily answer that separately because it's not really conversation hypnosis. Essentially, all that's happened is, you, as you said, you took a risk. You moved too fast, right? Another principle that may come in here is the law of successive approximations. You just move across things bit by bit by bit. Now, the chances are that you probably succeeded, so one of the ways the suggestion can be taken is that he forgets to move his feet, or even forgets how to move his feet temporarily, right? We've all had this. I mean, I've had this once when I was driving a car, and I forgot which one is the brake and which one is the accelerator. A very interesting moment. Luckily, my foot remembered the last moment, so that was a very happy time. But that's one of the typical ways that people can respond, right? Just a very quick rule of thumb on that sort of thing. I call it the wash, rinse, repeat formula. If a suggestion doesn't take, wash your hands of it. In other words, let it go. Rinse, so let him forget about it. So go back to something that's already worked to get an agreement again. So let's say they felt good, so go back to them feeling good and reinforce that. Then slowly build up to the repeat. So build up other things to repeat. We'll talk about things like dissociation and imagery and all these other things to make it more vivid, so the suggestion takes more fully, so it becomes a stronger experience, and then that's more likely to take as well.
Right, but I attached this thing to the emotion inside of him. So,
sure.
Right, and I sort of gave him a choice. If you want to break this nice and
sure.
feeling well being grown inside of you, just move your feet.
Right.
And he didn't move his feet.
So he succeeded then.
But then he said, "Should I?" And if I said, "Try it," then my expectation is that he would have actually moved his feet.
Honestly, it's impossible to tell without actually seeing what's happened at that point. Now we're getting into like little minutiae. In terms of principles, I mean, you got a good result to start with. You can reverse it in terms of should I? Do you want to? No. Well, then don't. Right? Okay. A simple way of dealing with it. You can enhance the suggestion saying those feet are getting more and more stuck. Try and move them, but really the more you try, the better you feel and the more they get stuck. And then you just enhance that separation. You can put a conscious and conscious dissociation. So you think you want to move those feet, but really you don't want, your unconscious mind is going to keep them firmly stuck. Experience yourself as a mind, watching your body, not moving your feet, but wanting to. And the more you try to move them, the more they don't. You see there's a lot of places we can go with this. If you want to know more about that, honestly, come to the walk-up street hypnosis training. That's what we're focusing on there. This is conversation hypnosis, which is more to do with the influencing, the being a force for good and that sort of stuff. So I apologize, and I'll happily talk to you more in private about those things, but it's not within the scope
the
of what
memory of the walk-up hypnosis course in London is so fresh that I just couldn't resist and try that.
I understand that. So as I say, I'll happily talk to you about how to tweak that on that side, but it goes beyond the scope of what we're doing here.
All right, thank you.
Okay, no worries. Any other quick comments or questions before we wrap up? Come on up.
I have a question about trance. I once heard a stage hypnotist say that a strong mind goes into trance easier than a weak mind.
That's a reframe.
Do you believe that it's a trick?
It's a reframe. It just makes people more likely to respond. It's like thinking like, I'm not feeble-minded. No, I'm going into hypnosis. The fact of the matter is, what you require is attention. If someone can attend, has good attention, then the chances of trance occurring are pretty high, right? There is a mild correlation between intelligence and trance. That's true. But beyond that, really, it's more a statement designed to motivate people to respond well than anything else. Okay?
All right, so it doesn't matter, actually.
Yeah, I mean, what's a strong mind? What's a weak mind? What the hell does that mean?
Well, no.
Think about it.
When
What
we
does it
go
mean?
into your frames, for example,
Yeah.
someone who's really confident and sure of what he's doing.
Yeah.
And he doesn't
So-
have to prove anything to anyone.
Right, excellent. So you ask that person if someone's really confident, sure what he's doing, are you confident enough to enjoy hypnosis now?
All right.
Right? So I think this idea of a strong or a weak mind, it doesn't fit how we know that, or what we currently know of how the mind works. It's not like a muscle in terms of you have good or bad memory, you have good or strong or weak attention, you have better or worse decision-making skills and so on. You can't say a mind is strong or weak. It just doesn't exist.
All right.
Make sense?
Yeah.
Thank you. It's a great question. So any more questions? Good. Sometimes we have to ham these things up, don't we?
I have one very brief
Sure.
question. We were doing the redirection or the directing of somebody
Yeah.
notice and so on and so forth. And I was taught that most people don't visually imagine things.
Sure.
And I'm fairly auditory, so I tend to go to that direction.
Right.
And afterwards, the person asked me directly, says, "I'm more visual. Can you?"
Sure.
Tell
In
me-
terms of visualizing, I'll give this very brief because we'll cover this more as we go into the things tomorrow. Some people, everyone visualizes. You cannot not visualize. It's just some people are aware of their imagery and some of them are not. Right. So to take it all out of the equation, then you do two things you can do. Is one is perhaps you'll even see that bird over there. The other thing is just to take it out of the sensory realm and say, just consider your kitchen for a moment, or consider your living room, or consider your friend. Think about that person. You know what they look like, right? Perhaps you can feel perhaps you could even feel, and if you were there, you might even touch that person and notice the sensation of, the contact of their coat or something like that. So you can describe everything you want in visual terms. It just doesn't seem visual because you're talking about thinking, memory, considering, and so on. So as long as you take the pressure off them from actually having to recognize a visual input, most people will visualize it without realizing. Make sense?
Thank you.
And in conversations, it happens all the time. Can you imagine that? I was there, and this guy is standing here, and this other person standing there, and the person goes, "What do you do to him?" They're seeing the same person, right? It's just the unconscious mind is filling in the gaps, and that's pretty much how it works.